The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Good evening and welcome to my State of Mind. I am Dan Yorke. The Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns is an organization that you may or may not be familiar with, but my guess is you'll be more familiar with it now. The North Providence Mayor has been named the president of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, and he is not one to mince words, nor fight for his community or lake communities. So with no further ado, here's a headline that reflects the good news for both North Providence and I think for the state. Time for a candid conversation with the new president. And so we joined the good mayor of North Providence, Charlie Lombardi, who is now the new president of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns. And I promise you that organization shall never be the same. Mayor, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dan.
We have to have some fun. Listen, if we don't have some fun, we're not doing anything around here. Listen, congratulations on your role there. The league has actually stepped up and been more formidable, I think, at the legislature in the last 8 to 10 years. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But before we get to that, North Providence is in the news when it comes to coronavirus. We've got a situation there where you had a couple positive cases, but you had a delay in notification, which has caused a disruption. Tell me what you know about that.
Well, what I know is that, Dan, the Department of Health did not notify the school department in the appropriate time or in a timely manner, which should have been immediate, in letting them know, about this situation. Which is caused now for the high school to be closed until I want to say it's the 20th. And this is not the first time we've had an issue, and I will be calling them this afternoon, asking for a full explanation as to exactly what happened. But this is, like I said, Dan, it wasn't the first time. When this COVID all started, we had a nursing home that was infected, they never notified us, and just the numbers went out that the town was highly infected. And, when I did finally reach them and they wouldn't come clean with the information, I said, hey, listen, why didn't you tell us that it was one facility? At least we would have been able to notify our first responders that are going to that facility once or twice a day. And more importantly, let the taxpayers at large know that this is not a widespread issue around the entire town. It's, at one facility. So it's not the first time. And by the way, I know they're inundated, but, still, this is a disruption, especially now with education. And we're gonna get to the bottom of it. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, I am sure, and this kind of will dovetail into some of the conversation we have about your new role. I am sure that as you traverse the town and as your phone rings, that there are everyday citizens who are asking you, just like I did, about what happened. A health issue certainly crosses into your domain, no doubt about that, but the actual responsibility for the school openings and closings is the purview of the superintendent to the school committee, not something that you have a direct relationship with. And I'm sure that this will be yet another example of how the constituents are generally not really up to date on that kind of thing, right? I'm guessing you're getting a lot of questions.
We are getting some questions, and by the way, you're right. I mean, you got to understand, and I think you just made reference to it, that the school departments are autonomous. The superintendent, the school committee, and I think that they're handling this particular situation. And I think they're handling it properly, so to say. But should it have happened? No. And I think the organization right now, or the office that's going to have to answer for it, is the DOH.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, we're going to pause, and when we come back, we're going to get into what the organization does, the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, what the mayor sees as his new role in leadership there. And also there's always a question or two about what's happening in North Providence. So we shall continue with the mayor of North Providence on My State of Mind. Charlie Lombardi, stay with us. Mayor Charlie Lombardi from North Providence. We'll get into some of the things happening in his fine town because there always is. But Charlie, you've been really recently elected as the president of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns. Congratulations again on that. It's a 2-year term, and reportedly you've said I read the story in the Valley Breeze that you're very excited about it. What excites you about representing that organization?
Well, first, Dan, I want to thank everyone at the league, mayors, managers, administrators, for putting their trust in me, and asking me to lead this fine group of individuals for the next 2 years. But I think that, Dan, look, I know I may, and I would say operate maybe a little differently. You always know where I'm coming from. All of those other elected officials, especially at the State House, Dan, that, I mean, when you look at some of the things that are happening there, you look at some of the votes, some of the legislation that got passed, look, the buck stops here at the local communities. And I mean, we're the most responsive and accountable to the taxpayers. And, we're the ones who hear from them constantly. And look, our names go on the tax bill. My name goes on the tax bill. So to, not say anything about that or have our feelings noted, that's going to happen. You know that.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, there's a lot to unpack there. The idea that anyone would have trepidation of you running the organization, I think is probably, is probably having more fun than being practical. Although, I think you probably were elected because of your straight shooter disposition. You don't pull any punches. And right now, there's such a space between the state government and local government in the sense that the state government is on a milk carton. You can't find the state government right now. So let me ask you this. I have been really, 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 really critical of what's gone on in this emergency situation with COVID. I understand March, April, May, maybe even June, with the governor, running the show autonomously here, but that the General Assembly is hiding under a desk somewhere and then delaying any kind of budget decisions until after November, and then posting bond questions for a special election after November, I think is one of the most egregiously irresponsible ducts of leadership I've ever seen. That's my point. You say what you got to say. Are you happy with the General Assembly being in absentia right now?
No. I think the General Assembly should be in session. We're looking at a 25-cent tax increase because of the monies that we didn't receive, where there are a number of communities that just entered into into litigation. Look, it's just like the charters of all the communities that if there's not a budget passed, you operate on the previous year's budget. And that's what should be happening here right now with the state budget. So is it good? Absolutely not. I mean, everyone knows that the can's being kicked down the road and we're going to wait till the election's over. And then what? Oh, okay, hope that the people in 2 years forget what happened. I don't think it's fair to us. Like I said, we're the ones that hit the ground running here. And we're taxed to uphold and protect our local governments, right to self-govern. That's our job.
Do you think when you say when you ask, geez, people are going to forget 2 years later? Do you think everyday citizens understand that the General Assembly has kind of taken a powder here, or are they just all still in this worried fetal position, just waiting for Governor Raimondo to give them permission to go to the bathroom?
The league will be taking a position to make sure that the electorate knows exactly what happened. Meaning that, listen, let's take a look at the bills that were passed. Lifetime contract bill, the presumption bill. I mean, look, we want everyone to stay healthy, but I mean, to say that no matter how long you've worked at a fire department, if you get cancer, it was work related. And if you got skin cancer from sunlight, And by the way, when you look at the votes for those bills, I want to say it was 61 senators, no representatives that voted for that. Only 7 opposed it. And on the Senate side, I think there might have been 2 people that opposed it.
Yeah.
So those are the bills that affect the League of Cities, that affect the communities, Dan, and affects the tax base, affects the cost. How could you support that? You mean to tell me some of these people don't have a mind of their own?
That particular legislation, it feels like that's a pre-COVID decision, right? That I'm not sure everyday citizens were really very well aware of. But what's really interesting about the League of Cities and Towns and really this, what I call mezzanine form of government, where mayors have really stepped up and taken a prominent position, in the governmental dynamic over the last 8 to 10 years here in Rhode Island. You've got the responsibility to execute this stuff. Many of you are Democrats. And so political philosophy is really not what's at stake here. Fiduciary responsibility is what drives you guys, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, I think it's time that we need to make our decisions. And I know a lot of the managers, mayors, and administrators do. Make our decisions on what's best for everyone, not just politics. What's best for everyone.
So the League of Cities and Towns has grown to a level of prominence, I think, over the last decade or so. There's been a camaraderie amongst mayors and town administrators. Am I correct in saying the last decade or so, there's been a pretty good network and force that you folks have formed?
Absolutely, Dan. I haven't met one manager, mayor, or administrator that doesn't fight for what's best for their community. I haven't at this point in time. And by the way, the great thing about this organization is I may have a problem that you didn't, or you may have a problem that now I'm having. And like you said, the camaraderie and the sharing of information is you can't buy that. You just can't.
Do you believe on that level, Charlie, that you have? Look, Rhode Island is unique. I mean, I think there's more common ground than uncommon ground, but we have a very provincial culture, right? Do you think every community in the state has more common than uncommon ground, including comparing yourselves like to the city of Providence and Mayor Lorza and his agenda?
I think for the most part, he and I and all other communities have basically the same issues and problems. I think the difference is how we manage them and how we address them. And I mean, if you want to be, have a little more politics in you, then you dance a little.
Talk to me about education, by the way. There's a movement amongst administrators and mayors to try to get more traction on education, right?
Well, I can tell you this, Dan, the autonomy of the school departments, as far as I'm concerned, that needs to disappear. Because I think what happens is, what we see here is that, first of all, they oppose any of the charter network. And my answer to that is, okay, listen, you oppose it. Why? Well, it's the money. Well, excuse me, do you think that I should be telling the Lombardi family, the Yorke family, oh no, this is where you're going to send your child to school? You do not have the right to make application to a charter school. I'm not going to do that. Our job is that if you make that choice to send your child to a charter school, then we need to fund it. And by the way, they spend the money like they don't like it. And most of that money isn't going for a better education. It's going for like administrative costs. And by the way, when you come from business, this goes, I'll end it at that.
Right. All right. So we'll wrap up this part of the conversation by by having you forecast. When someone asks you the simple question, and I shall, what does the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns stand for, and what will its mission statement be over the next couple of years? What will it be?
Well, I can tell you this, Dan. When you think about it, 75% of municipal budgets is for personnel. So there's a perfect example of how every decision you make affects the bottom line. In other words, yeah, I want to tell you, yep, go ahead. Let me give you a 3, 4, 5% raise. But when it affects the bottom line the way it does, you know, I can tell you this, that I see the League of Cities and Towns debating more and more legislation and issues, so to say, that affect our communities.
And what will COVID's impact be on that whole conversation?
Well, again, that's a good question. You got what all this money that the state's got, and they're not letting it go. They're not giving it up for the help, you know, that the cities and towns need right now. Dan, where is the money? Look what Danny McKee went to trying to get some money for the businesses. It's absurd. That's what needs to be addressed right there.
All right. So will the league take a stand on this hoarding that Governor Raimondo has done of the COVID relief funds?
Yes.
All right. We'll leave it there, and we'll look forward to your statement on that when we come back. Speaking of the cross between school departments and mayoralties, there's a unique situation going on in North Providence. And we'll talk about that with the mayor in our final segment when we come back on My State of Mind. Stay with us. Welcome back to My State of Mind. Charlie Lombardi is the mayor of North Providence. He hardly needs any introduction. You know, earlier, Charlie, we were talking about some of the misunderstandings about the role that a mayor plays when it comes to schools and school departments. But you've never been one to be shy about speaking your mind about things, including that which affects the taxpayer and the money that they spend. Joseph Goho is the superintendent of schools in North Providence. I've known him, you know, I've known him to say hello for years. I find him to be a very pleasant guy, but he has a very unique deal going on right now, dually serving as the chairperson of the school committee in Lincoln, where he lives, and the superintendent of schools in North Providence, where he works. And his contract is unique. We only have a few minutes, but explain to me what you're concerned about there.
First of all, being the superintendent here, Dan, and I told him, by the way, he knows the way I feel, and being the chairman of the school department in Lincoln don't work. Now, he has a contract here that someone, you know, called me a few months back and said, did you see the school superintendent's contract? I said, no. Well, you need to take a look at it. So I said to the fellow, tell me where you're going with this. No, take a look at it, call me back. I take a look at it. On the front page, Dan, it states that if the school department wants to go in a different direction, test scores are down or what have you, they just want to go in a different direction, they need to notify the superintendent 2 years in advance that they're going to make a change. They make that change. If they decide to make the change, now they have to give that person an administrator's job, making the same salary until minimum retirement age. So I tell them, look, this is $1.5 million contract. How do you figure that? Excuse me. If this gentleman's only making $160,000, let's say he's only making $150, but he's making $160. Okay, he's here for only 10 years, $1.5 million contract. Then the other problem with that contract, Dan, is there's a stipulation in the contract, right, that states that in a court of law, that if this is challenged and it's termed illegal, what do you think it says? They got to give him the position anyway. It's absurd. It's disappointing that anyone would support a contract like this. Here's what it says, by the way. If and in the event the preceding section is determined to be unenforceable for any reason by a court of competent jurisdiction, the committee shall employ Joseph Goho as a billing administrator in accordance with the terms So why would that be put in a contract if they didn't think that this contract had an issue?
Yeah, I've never seen a guarantee like that. When you first mentioned it to me, I thought, all right, well, that's a 2-year separation agreement. Notice just means, we don't want you anymore, but we got to pay you for 2 years. But if they also have to park them in the building or park them into the system, that's a guaranteed contract. That's what it is. It's just a guaranteed contract. It's as simple as that. So
until retirement age.
Yeah. Well, have you found any other comparative super
I asked the attorney that wrote this contract. I said, let me ask you a question. You ever seen another contract like this? And I have 8 of them right here on my desk. So he wouldn't answer at first. I said, listen, that's a yes or no answer. Have you ever seen another contract like this? And by the way, this is an attorney that represents a school department here, but he's also the attorney that represents a school department in Lincoln.
Oh.
How's that?
Well, I would love to give Mr. Goho a chance to speak about that. We've actually contacted him on the radio side, and he's not willing to get into it. I think I can understand why. I'm sure he wants his work to stand for himself rather than his contract, but that's a deal. I only have 30 seconds here. You got a theory on why they wrote it this way?
Well, I think, I think a little friendship with maybe the chairman of the school committee. And again, listen, I think the people that need to answer for this is the school committee that voted for it. Not as much Joe Goho, but the school committee.
Right. We shall pursue that. Charlie, best of luck with the League of Cities and Towns. Obviously, we'll stay in constant touch.
Thank you.
Look forward to your representation of that organization. It's important for the taxpayers. Appreciate it. Stay safe.
Thank you. You also, Dan, you and your family.
Final segment. We come back. Stay with us. As I said at the top of the show, Charlie Lombardi's not going to mince any words, and he will put the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns in a prominent position, one that it needs, because at the end of the day, who do you go to for the answers in your community? Your mayor or your town administrator. Have a great night. We'll talk to you on the radio from 3 to 6 on WPRO. I'm back here tomorrow night. Thanks. See you.